Call the meeting to order. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could just stand for a moment of silence for the passing of Assistant Chief Kieran Dunn's brother, who was a retired Yonkers Assistant Fire Chief. His name is Larry Dunn, and he lived in Fairfield, and he is survived by his wife, Arlene, and their 3 daughters. Thank you. Item number 3, can I get a motion to consider and act upon the minutes of March 9th, April 3rd, and April 10th, 2023?
So moved.
I'll second them.
Is there any discussion on these?
Nancy, I thought you had was your,
I think it was, if I'm reading it correctly,
was taken care of?
Yeah, that one's not on there, I don't think,
Oh.
because I think Prue has to go back and listen
Yeah.
and all this other stuff.
Okay.
but
Probably have it on for the next agenda.
I was,
I did re-listen, and I sort of stand by what I said. So if, respectfully, if you wouldn't mind going back and listen, I just want to make sure the intention, not only the intention, but what I said. So, yeah, next time. Thank you.
so that wasn't the one from.
No, it's not on
No.
here.
Uh-uh.
Microphone's not on, Nancy. So these are not those minutes. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on these minutes?
I'm good.
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Very good. Okay. Item number 4, I just want to mention, thank Stephen Leahy for serving on the Town Planning and Zoning Commission. He resigned on March 29th, and I just want to thank him for his service. I know that's a busy commission. There's a lot going on there at all times. And is there any comment on that item?
I'd just like to thank him for his service. Much appreciated. It is a busy commission.
It is.
Yeah, I'll echo that. Thanks to Stephen.
Good luck. And our next item, can I get a motion to approve the appointment to replace Stephen with Peter Collins of Newton Street? This is an alternate, and this is from 21 to 25 to fill that resignation.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, very good. Hello, Peter. Welcome to our Board of Selectmen meeting. Sure. Yes, so typically we just open it up. If you have any comments you want to make, or you don't have to, don't feel the pressure. If you want to make some comments, it's up to you.
No,
Or
other than that, I look forward to working hard for the town.
Okay. And I'll open it up to the board.
Well, could Mr. Collins just come to the microphone, just so we could ask
Sure,
a couple
right up
questions?
there, Peter, then you push the button when it turns green.
But,
Hi, thank you
Hello.
for coming up, and thank you for your willingness to serve. I just have a couple questions, because I know you obviously as an owner and operator and have helped support at least one of your businesses. So just wanted to talk to you about your interest in this and what you are what is motivating you, and how you're going to kind of separate what you do as a business owner in town versus how you're going to serve.
well, I'm most concerned with keeping the, kind of quaintness and New England-y feel of Fairfield, and although there are, developments that will be coming in, but to look at those very carefully to make sure that they kind of match the architecture of the town. New, traffic that might be a problem, that kind of things.
And have you attended any of the meetings? Have you talked to because there is a lot going on.
Yes, I
In
heard
terms
that.
of 830G and all the various things, and
Outside of just reading a lot of the different things that are going on, I have not yet been to a planning and zoning meeting,
Well, have
which I
fun.
intend to.
All right, and have you talked to various commissioners or the head of the department about the experience and what you're going to be required to do as a,
I think we're going to have a briefing.
Depending on your vote, I'm here to steal Mr. Collins away after these proceedings too, for a brief orientation.
that's encouraging. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So I've had the benefit of knowing Mr. Collins a bit through hockey for a bit of time, and his involvement there, as well as have met his wife on several occasions. I think his background is very unique in being a business owner in town, being a residential rental property owner in town, and quite frankly, what I did not realize until seeing his resume was his experience on other boards and commissions in other
Yeah.
areas, which I think lends itself well to being part of this board. So I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
Well, if there's no further comments or questions from the board, I will open it up to the public. Is there anyone, member of the public online or in the room who have any comment? Seeing none. Back to the board. Well, I appreciate you stepping up to do this, Peter.
Thank
It
you.
is a lot of responsibility, and it is a very hot board. They see a lot of things. There's a lot of emotion involved, but I think that you will bring a level head. I think you will listen carefully to the information and follow our current zoning rules, and I think you will be a good addition. So I appreciate you stepping up.
Thank you, Brenda.
I just wanted to add, I have a lot of experience dealing with Community Board 1, so I know a lot about what you've done at the municipal level in the city, in New York City. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting to me, too, in terms of your experience, so.
Yeah, most of my was with CB2.
Yep,
Yeah.
I saw
My
that.
wife was actually on CB2 for about 6 years with Brad Hoylman, who's now our senator.
Yeah, I know the Jane Street development and all the
Oh,
work you do with
okay.
meat packing, so I work in Tribeca.
Oh, all right.
So yeah, that's why the Community Board won. Anyway, okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, if there's no further discussion from the board, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Peter.
Look
Good
forward.
luck on your tutorial.
Go easy on him.
Hope you brought coffee.
He's a good one. He'll be able to.
The third alternate this year, they're dropping like flies. So
I know. I don't know. It's all this, your board has got a lot of stuff going on. People are like, I can't take it. You're tough.
Excuse us, we'll-
You're tough, Peter. You can take it. Okay. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks.
Okay. Our next item is item number 6. We have to hear an overview of the independent investment discretionary advisory of the 457B and the 401A fiduciary review committee, update on the defined contribution retirement savings plan. And we have Stuart. Hi, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Let me just hand out a couple.
Stuart is Senior VP, Client Relations for Hooker and Holcomb.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Stuart Hershkowitz. I'm one of the partners of Hooker and Holcomb, and I have the responsibility of working with Megan and Caitlin and Jared in the finance department of overseeing the 401A, 457 plans for the town. Those are the defined contribution plans, not the pension plans. We serve as the independent fiduciary advisor to work with the town committees on oversight of the plan. We meet 2 to 3 times a year. We coordinate with the vendor. ICMA is a name some of you may recognize. They renamed themselves Mission Square a few years ago. And we as a committee monitor how they're doing. We monitor how the investments are doing. any technical, administrative items that need to be addressed at the committee level, and bring any recommendations, any potential changes to the plan. So going forward, there's a couple of changes that are happening right now. Some of you may be aware of what's called Secure 2.0, major changes in the retirement laws, that some provisions will be optional that the town can consider for adding to the plan. So we'll be working with the committee to make some suggestions, enhancements to the plan, and some of the changes that will have to be addressed and ultimately brought back to the board for selectmen for any final decisions on any potential issues. I handed out to you in the packet on the left-hand side, and we'll be short and sweet, just some quick provisions of what have to be looked at over the next couple years. Also wanted to put out there that there's an investment policy in place. So if you go down about 2 pages in the document on the left, that was initially, I think you should have that. Yes. So we have an investment policy in place that talks through what are the obligations of the committee, oversight of the investments. A number of years ago, there was a major change of the investment strategy where many of the funds were the old ICMA funds or Mission Square funds, and the committee went through an analysis and negotiated where they wanted best-in-class, lowest-cost investments, the Fidelities, the Vanguards, the American funds, and not Mission Square investments. Obviously, they have an agenda to have their investments. The one fund that they do have that's one of their top is their stable value, their guarantee fund. But the rest of the menu of investments that are offered are the names that I mentioned and other top quality funds. We also went through a process of making sure that the investments that are offered are the lowest cost that can be offered to employees. So the town of Fairfield actually, and we deal with a lot of the towns, have, from my experience, what I would call the gold standard for 401A, 457 plans, where you've got the lowest cost investments or institutional price funds that are very atypically not offered in the municipal world to employees. So these costs for these investments are the lowest cost, as well as the town picks up the administration fees for this plan, which also, compared to other towns, it's all built into the investments. So the town really, from my experience around the state, offers one of the top, again, the gold standard for defined contribution plans, where you've got best-in-class, lowest-cost investments, and we monitor this as a committee 2 to 3 times a year. There's reports that we provide quarterly to the committee members on how the funds are doing. So really, long story short, just wanted to give you a quick summary. Megan and I periodically will come back to this committee to just report on how things are doing, any items that need to be addressed. But I also have a quick snapshot of the investments as of 3/31. So there's approaching $50 million in this plan in total, just about $50 million in total between the 457 plan, which is the employee contribution part of the plan, and the 401A, which is the employer contribution part of the program. And that's our job, to monitor how the investments are doing. If some changes need to happen, periodically we do make some changes, not too often, but we are periodically making some adjustments. Right now, actually, we're in the process of one of the funds is the T. Rowe Price blue chip fund. We're in the process of transitioning that to a Fidelity fund. But 1-2 times a year, possibly, we're making changes to the funds. It doesn't happen too often. So really, long story, that's what I wanted to just update the committee, that we meet. There's documentation of the meeting. There's committee minutes of the meeting, so that it's all documented for folks to know that this oversight of the plan is happening.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Question?
Yeah, what sparks the change 1 or 2 times a year? What are you kind of?
Yeah, there's manager changes, retirement. So this one fund, the T. Rowe Fund, the gentleman who was running this fund for many years is retiring, and their performance has fallen down lately, and we've been monitoring how the new team has been doing. and when things just continue. So it's not an immediate switch, but we put a fund on a watch list, and periodically, after a while, if we don't see improvements, we'll make a change, communicate to the employees what's happening. They have some other choices if they want to not follow the change, but there's a process, it's documented, and then we actually would make a change sometimes. Other questions?
I'll open up to the board.
Yeah, if I might.
Sure.
Who is the committee again? Who's on it?
The committee is the finance director, the HR director, I believe the controller, if that's the right terminology.
Right.
And that group serves as the committee, and then the Board of Selectmen have oversight of the committee.
Right.
And this one committee is separate from the pension committee.
Right, that part I know. Yeah. So what, there's 20 funds listed on here that I can see. Why so many?
Well, a number of the funds are the target date funds. There's about 6 or 7 target date funds, and really that is one fund because it's based on participants' ages. Those really, each participant based on their retirement date. So that group is one fund,
Right.
group. And then there's the old asset allocation fund, the T. Rowe Price. Those are about 3 funds, moderate, conservative. So that group is really an allocation strategy for some people. So that right there is about 8 to 10 funds that really are truncated into one grouping. And then the remaining funds, large cap, mid cap, small cap, index funds, for those individuals that want to pick and choose to give a wide menu
Yeah.
without too many choices and paralyzing people. So it's about 10 other options besides the target date funds that for those people that want to do their own portfolio,
Yeah.
that's really why we do have 9, 10 other funds, international, a real estate fund, for people that want to sort of do their own investing.
Right. In your report here, you've got 2 allocation summaries. It says selected participants, 417 out of 621. What's the 417 participants out of 621? Do you know what the differential is there? Is that active versus active and retired, or what is that? Do we know?
Yeah, I'll come back to you on that, but I believe it's a combination of to your comment, yeah, active, some are term vested retirees that still keep their dollars in the accounts.
Okay. And to Nancy's point, to get on the watch list, I understand what you're saying, hey, they had a change in management or something like that. What are the other criteria that put things on the watch list, if you know?
Yeah, sure. So there is a benchmarking of the funds, and we are monitoring how the funds in each of the categories are competing and doing compared to their peers.
Right.
And generally, we're looking for a fund to be in the 50th percentile or better, or if you look on the 5-year ranking on the far right,
Yeah.
where generally want the numbers to be lower than 50. If it's lower than 50, they're in the upper half of their peer universe. So as a committee, we want the great majority of the funds to be in the upper half, and you'll see the rankings of these funds are across the board generally very much 50 or lower, and that means each of the categories. The one fund, the T. Rowe Price fund that I mentioned earlier, the ranking is not great, 5 years.
that, 86.
So that's the fund that we are changing, in the middle of changing. But you can see, if you look at the ranking of the funds over 5 years, that's a general guideline for ranking the funds.
Yep, I get it. So I used to be an auditor. Are there any audit requirements for these funds, particularly getting now towards $50 million, as you said? If we were a private company or a public company, we'd have to get these funds audited, would have to get this plan audited on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Any such requirement here?
Not right now. There is discussion. So to your question, in the corporate world, there are annual audit requirements, or what's called the ERISA audits of these
Right.
plans. In the municipal world, they do not have audit requirements annually to these types of plans, but there is definitely, and we deal with actually FASB, GASB down in Norwalk, are clients of ours. There's talk about having similar requirements in the municipal world. Right now, there's no audit requirement annually.
Right. That's what I thought. The, are most of the changes, you had mentioned the changes, and thank you for the listing. Most of the changes are done, or legislation, is it happening annually, biannually? Like, how often are things changing on you here?
So the Secure 2.0 was a major change of retirement plan laws.
Yep.
And if anyone's interested in that, I can get some more detail, but it's going to be staggered over 4 to 5 years. So so for example, the 70 and a half minimum distribution, if someone was over age 70 and a half, it was 72. That's actually being changed over to 75 over 4 to 5 years. So many of the changes are happening gradually, and Megan and I and the committee will be working on what are the options for 2024. There are some options in 2025, 6, so it's gradually some of these options will change.
Thank you. And how many municipalities do you deal with right now?
We deal with about 25 or 30 municipalities in the state.
Thank you. Nancy, you
Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, since it is a gold standard, I'm curious, as part of that committee, the HR department doesn't have any oversight, but it's kind of an interesting thing because it seems to me that that is an appealing part of any package, so it's more just an observation, as is the Board of Selectmen having oversight over this, except we're just really getting a report, not really getting, we're not putting input into it. And I just, again, just a observation more than anything.
Can I have a follow-up on that? So this has actually been something that's troubled me for many years now, since this was established. And it has nothing to do with you, and it has nothing to do with the
Same, by the way.
committee here. Yeah. Not only do we have oversight responsibility, we also actually have the liability.
Right.
What I've always said and wanted was to pass legislation in the town to have these come under the auspices of the pension board as separate plans, obviously, but so that they would look at the investment parts of this as well. Because essentially what you're doing is you're reporting into a bunch of accountants and HR people, which is fine. That's what I am. But they're not investment professionals. We have a pension board that is already stacked with volunteer investment professionals. And I've always thought that level of scrutiny, and I've actually, through the course of the years, talked with chairman of that body and said that they should have a bigger role to play as it relates to the administration of this plan, because quite frankly, you know, the three of us are not, unless you guys have sidelight jobs, right? You're not investment professionals either. So I would strongly recommend that we consider that and that we just change that. I'm sure everything that's going on is fine as it is, but I would like an extra level of outside analytics of the investment, because we're getting to the point where it's $50 million and it's people's retirement funds, period.
I think Megan has something she can share. You want to go up to the microphone, Megan?
Yeah.
This is Megan Brandt from our HR department. She handles our
Hi, Megan.
benefits.
Megan Brandt, Benefits Manager. So I think the philosophy and why it's different for 401A 457 participants is because these are participant-owned dollars. They're not town dollars. So I think the separation between the pension board, which is really town funds, and 401A 457 dollars was participant employee-owned dollars.
I understand.
Okay.
But the issue there is that we still have the liability should the plan not be administered appropriately, because I've seen many companies who actually are under audit have gotten sued over their administration of the plans, whether it be what investment options, because we dictate that, not the employees. The investment options are solely determined by the town or the town's representatives. So my concern, I know whose dollars they are. My concern is the actual administration of the plan. And again, it has nothing to do with you or the people in the town. It's just an added layer of protection and assurance that we're administering it appropriately. Plus, if you have an investment in professionals who are willing to do it, why not use them? That's the way I'd look at it.
And that's why we partner with Hooker and Holcomb too,
Correct,
to
yeah.
bring that level of expertise to the
Right.
the
So
plan
Stuart,
lineup.
can I ask you, just because we're talking about this, how many towns do it this way, and how many towns that you work with have their pension boards actually oversee these 401?
Yeah, I would say it's the majority have them separated, where the town pension plans are handled by a separate committee than the defined contribution plans are, the majority are separated.
Right.
But are they to the Board of Selectmen, or are they to a third party?
Then the two committees, the pension committee and/or the defined, report back into the selectmen, absolutely.
But I
Now,
guess
does
that's,
the pension board, do they have any interaction with you at all?
Do not.
No, because it is pensions, I get it, but that's why we hire you, though.
Yeah.
To manage it. I mean, listen, I agree, Tom. I don't think the Board of Selectmen should be, you know.
This is Jared.
Sure, Jared, go ahead.
So I can add a little something to this, because the JRID has talked about it before and talked about wanting to have H&H come before them and make a presentation and weigh in. Although ultimately, the retirement board decided not to do that because they were concerned about, really, I think, about exceeding their authority that's granted to them in code. Because the authority is with the Board of Selectmen, and through the Board of Selectmen to the committee, and the retirement board was concerned about, you know, potentially bringing some responsibility to themselves if they were to start weighing in, making suggestions. So that they did talk about it. The retirement board did talk about it, but ultimately decided not to have any kind of input.
They can't do it, and the reason for that, you're absolutely right, Jared, they can't do it informally. They would need to actually be, there would need to be, I don't know what you'd call it, but we would need to pass something, and maybe defer to the town attorney. It would need to go to the RTM to actually empower that board. Right? You don't want to do it advisory without having the
No,
responsibility.
right, and I don't know when
Right.
it was established.
And-
You were, you know, on the Board of Finance.
I was on the Board of Finance at the
This has been
time.
the way it's been forever?
We actually, at the Board of Finance, argued that the administration, the past administration, should have gone and involved the retirement board, quite frankly, as to whether to hire Hooker and Holcomb or somebody else, right? I mean, that's what it ultimately comes down to, and what the investment option should be. I just think it's something that we have a fiduciary responsibility here, and it's a discussion that should be had. Because there is liability associated with this, and I've seen that liability in my day job, my past day job, when I did this for a living. So I just think, and I would call them retirement boards, not pension boards, and if they're willing to take on the responsibility, I would avail ourselves of their expertise in being part of it.
Well, I think, you know, I mean, obviously, it's a bit more not probably, it's more complicated than that. So they've discussed it and don't want it. and-
No, they did want it, but they couldn't, they
Right.
needed to be authorized to
Right,
get
they
it.
did before. I'm not sure how they feel now. Jared's saying they're kind of leaning against, but I think it's something that, you know, the town attorney could have a discussion, and Jared can discuss it too. Carolyn can speak about it with them at the pension board. I mean, listen, I agree. I don't think that the Board of Selectmen, I mean, it's to be, it's just, it's just, we don't have the experience to be able to say right or wrong. I mean, that's why we hire Hooker and Holcomb. That's why we have the finance board. That's why there's a committee. That's why the CFO and the comptroller and benefits manager are all involved. But it's something I think we can look into.
So, and I will tell you, the Board of Finance never got reports like this when I was on there, and I don't think I'm wrong in saying this is the first report, and I'm glad we're getting it. But I think this is the first report, the first time you guys have come before us,
Yes.
right? Yeah, we have the ultimate responsibility
Of the,
But-
of the administration.
of the administration of the
Of the plan.
plan, right? But yet, this is the first time in three odd years that they've that I've sat on this board, that they've come before us. I don't know if they've gone before anybody prior to us. So that's not.
Tom, there was an opinion that was done by Pullman and Conley in 2019, and one of the things it said was that by the town hiring H&H or whomever, that the fiduciary responsibility is greatly reduced to either the Board of Selectmen or to the committee that was formed. So, and it's essentially passed on to H&H, who becomes the fiduciary.
Yeah, I get it. We'll still be sued.
That makes sense.
They go after deep pockets. I mean, it is what it is.
Okay.
So I just
But you're
wanted to go
right.
on, yeah, just to go on the record to echo, the concerns and, I agree with what you've said, Tom. It's important, and what, Brenda, you're saying, just in terms of looking at it and evaluating and.
And how long ago did the town move some of our employees to the 401? Do you
It
remember?
was a bunch of years at this point, maybe 8, something like that, 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I thank you for coming, and I thank you for being here.
One last item just to mention also, Megan's aware, we as a firm actually are being acquired on May 1st. So we, after 65 years being the largest regional independent in the Northeast, pension actuarial administration, investment advisory, we're being acquired by USI. USI is a national consulting insurance brokerage firm, and they've been after us for many years for our municipal expertise. So we're going to be folding our business, and their retirement business of USI is actually based in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and we were in the West Hartford, Bloomfield area for many years. So that's happening, and we've alerted our clients effective 5/1 that's happening.
Hope it doesn't mess up your commute.
I live down in Orange here, and I'm around the state. None of our employees, all of our employees are being offered retention bonuses to stay on. The same team that will be working with the town, myself, I've been with H&H 25 years. Our other senior investment professionals have been with our firm for many years. We're all staying on for at least 3 to 5 years, so there will be no changes on the team. And Megan and Jared and Caitlin will have our team available as well going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. All right. All right,
Thank you, Megan.
So our next item, I'm going to have some presentations made. We've been talking about Penfield, Nancy brought up talking about a building committee, and we previously discussed this, should the town or should the town not establish a building committee for Penfield? And after much discussion in our staff meetings and with the town attorney, it was determined that a building committee is not required for this project, as we aren't constructing a new building, but we are repairing grade beams and removing contaminated fill. So it is a unique project, one that will certainly be under scrutiny by the regulatory agencies involved, FEMA, EPA, and DEEP. So we felt the best way to move forward is to keep the community informed of this project by providing updates to the Board of Selectmen monthly. And we have also created a webpage dedicated to the project. We will be posting all those updates and corresponding documents, and it will be www.fairfieldct.org/Penfield Pavilion. And today I've asked our CAO, Tom Bremer, who's obviously intimately involved with it, this project from the very beginning. The project manager from our engineering is Eli Gazal, and our DPW director, Bucky Marsilio. And we also have Greg on the line from Bismarck Construction to give an overview of the project as to where we are now and our next steps. And we included in the backup today the initial contracts for which the board will not be voting on now, but will be looking to vote on the next Board of Selectmen meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to our Penfield team and to give an update, and then I'll open it up to the board after that for questions. Hello, Mr. Bremer.
Good afternoon, all. This is like a kickoff meeting a little bit. I think we'll go into a lot more detail on May 1st, which will be the next Board of Selectmen meeting, and we'll do it every month thereafter. I wanted to give you a sense of where we are, what we've been doing for the last 2 weeks. As you all know, it was approved to move forward right at the end of right before March 31st, which was the deadline, and FEMA has advised us that they are not going to go through the retrograding and that sort of thing. So where are we? What you have in your backup materials is what we call the first round of contracts. There are 4 contracts. I'll go through them very briefly. I will not read any of them. One is the architect contract. One is for Race Engineering. One is for our construction manager, Bismarck, which is on the phone if there's any questions. And one is with Weston & Sampson, who's our remediation expert. Very briefly, what are these people going to be doing over the next few months? We can't start construction tomorrow, as much as I would like to, because we need very detailed design drawings. Why do we need detailed design drawings? That's because we need to submit those to FEMA to tell them exactly what we'll be doing. To date, what FEMA has and what they've opined on is what we call our conceptual drawings or schematics. They've already been submitted to FEMA. We've already got thumbs up from them, that sort of thing. What we need to now do is have detailed construction drawings drawn up so that everybody knows exactly what they will be building when construction begins. So that's going to be provided by the architect. The second contract is with Race Engineering. Race Engineering has to do some studies based on the new elevation and what impact waves will have, that sort of thing, on the new foundation once it's built. That analysis needs to be accomplished. I am told it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks to accomplish that analysis. Though those data points will be fed into the design drawings that the architects will be working on. The third contract is the construction manager, Bismarck. As I mentioned earlier, they're on the phone. They are, I'm calling them more like the conductor. They're really kind of be managing all the different elements of the construction that will occur. As you all know, we have really 2 things going on at the same time. First is we're going to have to remove the foundation and replace it with a new foundation. That's primarily in the construction world. The second thing that's going on is the removal of all the bad soil, remediation, that sort of thing. And that's a very different subset, and that's being handled in the 4th contract by Weston & Sampson, who have a lot of experience in that world. So the construction manager really is going to be balancing our remediation efforts with the construction efforts to make sure that everybody who's on site is able to do it in a cost-effective and efficient manner. What are we hoping to accomplish over the next couple weeks? I've included all the contracts for your review, not to be voted on now, but to be voted on by May 1st. What we're hoping to accomplish between, say, now and May 1st is to just move the ball forward, get the drawings more completed, have hopefully Race Engineering will be right about that time finishing their review, and we'll be moving on from there. We have the goal over the next few months is to put a package together in sufficient detail that it can be provided to FEMA so that we can get a sign-off, if you will, on our final design, and so that we can move forward. The scheduled date to start actual construction is going to be the week of Labor Day, and we hope to begin then. So, as I said earlier, we've got 4 contracts for your review to sign off. We'd like to get those signed off on May 1st so that we can begin to pay some of these people that have been working on this so that we can move forward. and I'm happy to take any questions. Eli's here as well. I should point out Eli and both Bucky have a lot of construction management experience and will really help moving this forward. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Tom. I'll open up to the board.
I have a few, Tom.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Couple things. I'm curious.
Nancy, please.
Sorry. It's very sensitive.
Or use your outside voice.
Yeah. I would love 4 areas. The bid process for all these subs, is that going to be the metrics and all of that? Is that going to be on the site? How do you sort of plan to communicate that?
So when the design briefly, when the design drawings are all completed, those design drawings will become part of the package that the construction manager will use to go out for his bid packages for all the subcontractors. At the same time, Weston & Sampson will be using those drawings as well, so they will go out for their bid packages with the subs as well. Again, I've got 2 different groups. One's on constructions, one's on remediation. When those bid packages go out, the responses will come in. The town sits down with the construction manager, and we go through all the different bids. We go through the proposals. We go through who should be awarded, that sort of thing. Once the awards are done, will that be all put on the website? Sure.
The bids themselves won't be. So the only information that the public will get to see on that, and I'm not assigning judgment, I'm asking a question. The only bids we'll get to see are the ones once they've been awarded?
No, I think the bid packages, I would have no problem putting them out to the public as well. I mean, they will be.
I think typically sealed until they're.
Well, the responses are sealed, but the bids go out. They're public, and the more people bid on it, the better.
Right.
You know, that sort of
And
thing.
the metrics being used and all of that in
Sure.
terms of. The scope of work I noticed for the architect has changed. Can you talk about that? Like I saw a bridal room and a hallway and kitchen expansion, just none of this was talked about, so.
Well, the thought there is, what we basically have done is we have a very definitive scope of work, if you will, for this project. What the project basically is what everyone's talked about in terms of remediation, in terms of fixing the building. The other things that have been included in the architect's plan is only if there's excess money, that things are way under budget. And then my thought there is, because what you're really referring to is in some of our earlier meetings, we met with Anthony, and he said, boy, if we're doing a lot of stuff to the building, can you do some of this as well? And I basically was, that's great. We'll get back to you on that. And we'll get back to you on that is, A, if we have a lot of extra money, if somehow we've been able to, there's a lot less remediation efforts that we needed, there's a lot less soil than we expected, if everything is coming in much lower numbers, then the thought there is the architect's not going to do anything additional unless we authorize it. So I would come before Brenda, come before the boards and decide, gee, we have all this extra money, there's some updates that we would like to do to the building, et cetera, et cetera. And only under that scenario would we even consider doing it.
And then I know there was discussion around the Board of Finance table about construction insurance. Can you give an update of where we are there? And
Construction insurance, we're moving forward with our outside insurance person. We have at least one company that's indicated interest in insuring this project. We're not going to go forward with a construction project this size without insurance. So those efforts are ongoing, and I'm very confident that we'll be able to get
yeah, I just.
adequate
again,
insurance.
I think the statement was made that they went out to bid, someone had gone out to bid to like 30 or 40 companies and they couldn't get a bite, and there was one, but it was going to be much more expensive than initially thought. So can you just talk about that?
Briefly, my understanding is that there are a number of local insurance companies that know about Penfield and are reticent to insure it, and they'd rather not get involved. That's what I've been told. Be that as it may, we're still confident that we'll be able to get some insurance. And as I said earlier, we're not going to go forward with such a large project unless we have insurance. So I would like to see us get the most cost-effective insurance as possible. So we are going to beat the bushes, as it were, and try to get insurance at a reasonable rate.
Given the nature of that and what you said, a lot of people know about this project, Penfield. Is there a scenario where you're prepared, because obviously no one wants to go forward with construction without it? Is there a scenario where you're sort of like, what's the plan B if it doesn't come through?
I can't imagine that it won't go through. It's only a question of, everything is insurable. It's just a question of how much money you want to spend for insurance. So,
We were advised that we could get it.
yes.
So it's
we've
not as
been-
if we can't get it. It depends on what the cost
It's
is.
just very expensive.
Wouldn't move forward without the insurance.
Right, I guess what I'm now circling back to is this idea that we talked about around the table back in March, about the very little room for margin of error. And if you're talking about insurance costs going up and up, it's just something that we need to be aware of, because then it chips away at that margin of error.
That's absolutely correct. We're very sensitive to,
But it also doesn't count toward the 50/50 insurance.
the
does it?
insurance would not count towards the 50/50, so. But you're absolutely right. Look, we're very mindful of the,
Yeah.
amounts that we have to work with.
And then a final issue for me, which in some ways is the biggest, because I made a big point of talking about how I thought that the flood control erosion, that the resiliency study really should be considered as part of this. Clearly, the majority didn't agree with me, but I just want to talk about that and how much that board is being considered, and how much they're weighing in, not just being sort of presented to, but really being a part of early stage discussions on the studies. I understand the 32,000 from Reese, this study here, the scope of work is what it is, but have the Flood and Control Erosion Board sort of weighed in on that? My understanding is that they'd want more of the adjacent neighborhoods considered and to expand the scope of that specific work around the structural situation. And, you know, I guess there's no point in pointing out that I think it's short-sighted to not include the bigger flood resiliency study as part of it, but really focusing on just the participation of this control board and where that's been, because I actually see some members here in the
I do too, as well.
Audience.
That's nice.
So I'm going to jump in and say that,
Sure.
obviously, we've been actively engaged with both Becky and Dick and the Flood and Erosion Board Control Board throughout this process. There are race studies that are on the books since 2016, is it? Remember? These were to update, these were things we put into place that we already agreed to even prior. There's money put away, ARPA money, that was put aside for updating studies, this also to this project. And so we're working on those. My knowledge base, based on my meetings with Eli and everyone looking at these studies, even updated studies, they're in the hundreds of millions of dollars of resiliency efforts. So it's going to be something that's going to be very extensive conversation. It's not like, oh, we're going to just put in $100,000 something, and we're going to be, there's a lots of moving parts and pieces. And that race study from 2016 is pretty expansive. This is to update that study. So they are. So the short answer is yes, we're definitely going to be working with them. But this project, which we said all along, is addressing an NOV. The resiliency were things we were going to be doing anyway, the studies, and then we added the extra money into the project. But there's other resiliency studies and reviews going on aside from this as well.
Right, but taking out the resiliency piece of it, even I know there are questions about the modeling that for this study that needs to be expanded, or there's recommendations that it should be. And in terms of like, what does it mean to be, adjacent? So,
Well, if I may, my understanding, just so everyone's clear, the 35,000 or whatever the number is, 30-some-odd thousand, that's not part of the $100,000. That's already in the budget.
right.
So the $100,000 is to update the earlier study that Race has done on Penfield and the area right around Penfield. My understanding as well is that the FECB has already provided with us a few other ideas that they would like to see incorporated in that study. And and we will have that incorporated in the updated study. So we're hoping at the end of the 100th or whatever the cost is, we're hoping at the end of that study to have some ideas that are generally accepted to the FECB as well as the town. Something that maybe we can do this, or, I'm not sure how many there will be, but there will be a number. I'm hopeful that there will be a few ideas that we think might be doable. And then the thought is we then need to sit down with both DEEP, EPA to the extent that they're involved, and perhaps even FEMA, but primarily DEEP, to see exactly what are any of these studies something that might be approved and that sort of thing.
So can you confirm then, to my understanding of what you just said, the Flood and Control Erosion Board had given you, had laid out in a communication what they had hoped to see and suggestions? Those are going to be incorporated and added as an addendum maybe to the scope of work for
Well, I
this?
just want to go first and foremost, understanding that that can never be agreed to unless FEMA said it could be. So it's not as if the town of Fairfield can say, oh, yeah, we're going to do this. FEMA regulates all of it. So does DEEP. So it's not as if the town can start incorporating things without sign-offs from regulating agencies that have that jurisdiction. And so we're not even close to that right now, but if in fact that we got to a point where there were some recommendations, that would have to be reviewed by those agencies. The project has a timeline. It has to be completed. There's contaminated soil. There's all these things that are involved. If in fact it's something that doesn't cost, $50 million or whatever, and FEMA says, yeah, we'll sign off on it really quick, and so will DEEP, then obviously take it into consideration, but we can't agree to that without, they regulate all that.
I would add with the caveat, of course, that the regulating agencies signed off.
Of course.
And cost.
So this first contract that races is only, to my mind, the first phase. We're not going to be, I don't want to change the scope of work. This is a contract. We need them to approve this. We need you to approve this so that we can move forward and get this work done. The resiliency package, in effect, is going to be a separate contract, which will enter with Race Engineering.
My concern today was primarily with what was before us, and I was just making the side comment that I thought it could be incorporated, or separate. But I am focusing, my comments today are focused on this specific study. Okay, that's it for now.
Sure. Tom?
Thank you. First of all, I want to say that I am in support of not having a building committee for this for a variety of reasons. The first one is the complexity of having to navigate FEMA, DEEP, town regulations. I think that was part of the problem with the original build out of this, that there wasn't crisp communication there. The second thing is that the timeline. I think a building committee, when you're bringing in volunteers and things like this to try to get this done on a timely enough basis and get decisions made, I think that could slow this process down, and there's a window of opportunity here to get this done to not impact town operations further than they already have. The third item is really the risk and kind of the history of the building. Getting a new panel selected of volunteers, given the history of what's gone on and transpired with this building and the risk involved with this, I think would be problematic to get people to really beat down the hatches to do this. So I think for all those reasons, it makes sense to keep this in-house, as it were. That said, I do have some questions / concerns that I want to ask here, which is, and due respect to the first select woman, I know what her initial response to me is going to be is, I will make the decisions, but I want to know who's going to make the day-to-day.
I don't want to make the decisions
Yeah.
on FEMA. And
Right.
No.
Who's going to be responsible for making the day-to-day decisions that come up in administering a project like this? I hear a lot of we, and we shall do this, and who's we? Who is the decision maker on a day-to-day basis relative to this
Are we
project?
talking in the town, or are we talking outside?
In the town. The construction manager or whomever is going to come to a point and they're going to need a decision made. Who is making that decision? I feel like it's an Evan Costello thing. Who's on first? Who's making the decision?
I don't know, third base. Well, I think the ultimate decision maker is Brenda.
She's not going to be making, due respect, I don't expect Brenda will have time to make the decisions on a day-to-day basis on a timely enough basis.
Well, as she knows, I will always say it's me.
Well, we have a team, obviously. We have, so things have changed, I think, dramatically in Town Hall than they were just even a few years ago. So the engineering department has people in there, Eli, for example, who wasn't there. We didn't have that level of expertise and professionalism. We also have Mega. We have many more people who are involved and aren't spread so thin. Eli's been super involved with this project from the very beginning. He has that experience. He has that oversight. We do have a construction company who manages, Greg is on, and he could speak to it if he would like to. And he did speak to it at the meetings, that, they do projects on the water. They do these things regularly. It's their profession. And we have Bucky, who has a ton of experience from his time in other towns and also at Aquarian, dealing with major projects. So I feel like we're in a good place. We have qualified people. And at the end of the day, the town does not want to screw this up. At all, and we have the regulating agencies, and we talked about this quite a bit at the 3 meetings on this, that we have regulating agencies surrounding each and every piece of this. We have DEEP, we have EPA, and we have FEMA, and I joked about it kind of at the meeting, but I was like, I'd like FEMA to show up every week,
Yeah.
To make sure we're doing it just the way they want. And I think what happened before was that, there was a plan submitted to FEMA that they approved, and then it was changed, and FEMA was not told that. And then when FEMA came down to look, they were like, that's not the plan we signed off on. I can assure you that will not be happening. We are going to do exactly what we said we're going to do. We're going to do exactly what they want us to do. And we welcome their oversight. There's a tremendous amount of oversight. This is a very complicated, as we know, project with 3 regulating agencies watching every movement and action. So, I feel pretty confident having them involved. I feel confident in Eli and Bucky and Tom and Greg to be watching our project.
But, by the way, I agree with, we've now have more expertise on the town payroll. I totally get it, right? That's not an argument about that. And by the way, I think we'll get FEMA right, and I think we'll get DEEP right. Okay, I'm not concerned about any of that. Right.
Don't forget them.
My question is, when there's a tie vote, right, on a day-to-day stuff, right, that's what I want to know.
You want to come up?
The question to you is
Eli,
what
come
kind
up.
of question
Can't hear you from
is
there.
going to come up? Like what? As simple as, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be overseeing Greg. I'm going to be there most of the day. If it's a minor, what type of decision are you mentioning? Is it a major change order? Are we talking,
Could be.
$50,000, or are we talking just a day-to-day?
I'm not worried so much about the cost. I'm worried about, when I do construction at my own house, right? The contractor will come to me and say, hey, Tom, we can either do it this way or do it that way.
Yep.
Right? Who's making that call?
Bismarck
right,
will be
on a
coming to
day?
me.
So you're going to be the guy?
I will be reporting to both Mr. Marsilio and Mr. Bremer here. But if it's a small, minor decision that I need to make, I will take the responsibility for it.
Okay. So now, how often have you guys laid out, I guess this is the committee, right? The three of you are part of the committee? How often are you guys going to meet? How are you guys going to administer this? And by the way, I have a problem with the makeup of your committee, but I'll hold off on that for a second.
Well, right now, we have weekly construction meetings. So with the outside people, we're meeting once a week, but I'm probably getting at least 1 to 2 calls a day on Penfield. So we probably talk about it every day, to some extent.
Okay, but what's the formality of that going to be moving forward?
In what
Notes, agendas, these are the key decisions that were made?
I haven't even thought about it, to be honest. We have, in terms of the outside vendors and us, that's an agenda, that's a weekly thing that's happening.
Right.
Internally, I don't know.
I mean, you'll be giving a monthly report, obviously.
And
to
I'll
the
be
Board of
giving a monthly
Selectmen
report.
And what's
about what
that,
had happened all month.
and
Well,
what's the
every 2 weeks.
format, and what's the format of that report going to be? Do we know yet?
No, but I would think that my plan is to come up on a monthly basis and say,
Right.
here's where we are, here's where we're going, here's what we've accomplished, that kind of thing.
So you're coming before us in 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could you put together a straw man of what that monthly report would look like?
Sure.
So that we can review that straw man here?
Sure.
In 2 weeks?
You want me to make changes? I'll be happy to.
Yeah, I'd really like to do that, because, and by the way, some of this is to protect you guys, right? Because this is going to be high profile.
Sure.
Right? And I don't want your butt on the line without having it documented and having the reporting. The makeup of your committee, what I have a mistake with, is you guys don't have a finance guy there or a finance woman. So I would say grab somebody from the finance department and that's going to be there to make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed on all the finance, because I don't want to go to a third party on that. I want to come to you guys and say, and whoever's on your committee, and say, where do we stand on the entire side of it compared to the budget? All right? So if we're going to bring it in-house, because the other thing I would say, and I don't know that there's room in the budget for this, but, and I mentioned this earlier this afternoon to the first select woman, there was an idea that was kicked around here quite some time ago. The building committees are nice, and I like having community involvement. I think that's great, okay? However, they slow down the process, and sometimes some building committees are stronger than other building committees. A concept that was discussed years ago but was never really fully implemented was this idea of an owner's rep. So I don't know, it doesn't appear that there's going to be room in the budget for something like that. But that is a concept that could be tested on a project such as this to see whether that would actually be helpful in how to administer this project. Because, Tom, I know, and you are like this, you are going to say it's going to be me at the end of the day, and I get it. But we also have the rest of the fill pile remediation. We have the berm that we need to deal with. I am very cognizant of the fact that there's a lot going on in your world. And your world, I don't know as well, but I know we've got a hell of a lot of ARPA money that's being spent on projects, and I know you're going to be pretty busy too. And we can't have this as somebody's sidelight project, given this. And it's all to protect you.
That is something we've talked about around the WPCA table as well. So if there's like a templated example and
Right.
a case study, this is a perfect time.
Right. So that's what I would encourage.
I'll get back to you on that before May 1st.
That'd be great, and I
No,
appreciate
it's an
it.
interesting concept, and, you know, in some cases it works, in some cases I'm not sure, because I know they're very expensive. I looked after we talked.
Yeah.
I mean, they could be $1,000 a week.
Yeah.
And, you know, they show up and they just, you know, they're not the GC really.
They've got to be managed.
So, you know, an owner's rep, and I am in the construction business, and deal with it. And so, an owner's rep is when that homeowner is not there. Or that, but the homeowner is here. You know, we're there.
We could have said that last time, though, too.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
you know, in
and, you know,
fairness.
listen, what happened in the past, you know, happened in the past.
Sure.
I think we have a much more professional team, and I think, obviously, there's a lot more oversight. But
I agree with
something
you.
to look at, you
Yeah.
know, we got to see costs. What is the benefit? To me, it's always cost benefit, you know? If an owner's rep is $1,000 a week, and they just stand there and just go, okay, that looks good. Like, I'm not, it has to be some kind of benefit, in my opinion. And the fact that we do have the three regulatory agencies so heavily involved with this project, which is very different than, say, for example, a school project, right, where they have owners reps. And sometimes that's used in a sort of cover your you-know-what, where this, they don't want to be the one who's kind of responsible, so the schools will hire an owner's rep. But I think it's something to look at. It has to see how much it costs and if it's really a benefit.
I think that's very fair. I think that what I'll leave you with is two things. What's the total budget for this at this point, Tom?
11.6.
And if it takes what's the timeline that you're supposed to be done with?
15
to 18.
to 15 months.
$60,000 on 11.6 is not a lot of money in terms of
It's
cost
going to be a lot
benefit.
more than $60,000. A lot more.
Well, you said
All right, let
1,000.
Bucky.
No, but that's okay. But it doesn't. We don't even have to do
He
this.
does know this.
Understood.
I would love to hear
Buck,
from
they
Mr.
can't hear you
Marsilio.
over there, so you're gonna have to get
Go
up,
ahead.
sir.
See, you made it yourself. You had to get up.
No, I just don't want misinformation to be
Yeah, that's fair.
out there. So, Nancy, you made a reference to WPCA, and I've been more involved than I want to be in WPCA recently, and especially with Matt and with the capital program to a great extent, and having discussions with Christine. So as recently as this morning, we were meeting on the east side wetland crossing, which absolutely needs an owner's rep. We all know that. Tom, you said this is a complicated project, or maybe it was you, Brenda. This is not a complicated project. This is a very simple project. There's only a couple moving parts here, but the permitting, the oversight, all of that is key. But taking material out, taking foundations out, putting foundations back, putting material back is not complicated.
Bucky, let me
Finish my thought, because I'm old, Tom.
You're on a roll.
And I forget these things.
That makes me feel good that you're on the committee.
Nancy, that owner's representative is going to cost $1,150 a day, not a week.
Yeah.
$1,150 for a 9-hour day. Transportation, all of that. That project is 18 months. So, and that is very, very complicated. That just begs for an owner's rep. This project.
And let me say, what I did say this project was complicated. However, I said it in the context of dealing with FEMA, EPA, and DEEP.
Yeah, I understood.
Not dealing with the actual day-to-day. And the other side of it is, just to be clear, the last people that said something like this wasn't complicated was the last time we rebuilt this thing.
Well, that was different people.
I'm just saying that's what was said.
Okay, that's not going to happen. This is simple. The coordination of it is a little clunky. But the actual project, I mean, I've built water treatment facilities, dams, I've built arenas, I've built baseball parks, parking garages. Some of those are very complicated.
I would imagine.
All right. The decisions that might have to be made here are going to be not complicated, weather-related perhaps, maybe some vendor accountability issues or productivity issues. Those are the things you're going to deal with. That's not hard to do. Yes, Nancy?
And I completely respect and appreciate what you're saying, and it gives me a level of comfort sitting at this table. But I think to most people in town, they're not going to appreciate that to them, to the average resident, this is complicated, it's happened before, it's been expensive, it's, all the things that it conjures. And so I guess I would say key to this is the communication, the transparent nature of all the material and the notes or the bids, any way that we can provide information, weekly notes, and again, it's not to add work that's not productive, but I think it would lend itself, and to echo Tom's point, I think having somebody from the finance world sort of as part of that cabal would be really
No,
important.
We don't object to that.
And I think that's why we suggested cabal. So
I was joking, that was said lovingly.
I think that's why we wanted to do the, once a month update to the Board of Selectmen, because it is a public meeting. The public can hear it, it's taped typically, so then people can have an opportunity to hear and get updates. So that was why we made that suggestion.
We good?
Yep. Good luck, gentlemen.
Gee,
And we'll
thanks.
see you in 2 weeks.
Great.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay, thank you. All right, okay, item number 8. Well, that's not a voting item. I could take it at the end if you want. Do you want to comment now, though?
Whenever you.
Okay. I mean, it's not a voting item. We usually take comments on voting items, but that was just an update. But do you want to say something?
I would, actually.
Okay, yeah. No, go right ahead. No, I don't want you to wait through our rest of our boring meeting. Well, all right.
Speak for
It's
yourself.
riveting.
I'm
It's
finding it's
riveting. Riveting.
Hi, I'm speaking on behalf of the Flood and Erosion Control Board. This is Becky Bunnell, the chair of the Flood and Erosion Control Board. And thank you for explaining that we are going to be doing a separate RFP, I assume, with RACE. Can you get me a sense of when that will be done? Because I think it's critical that we parallel path these things, because some of the solutions that they may come up with as they reevaluate the 2016 scenarios that were originally done, and we think what could be permitted today, may involve things like berms or dune structures or plantings or things that we would need to know about before we finish this project, which may involve landscaping. So we need to sort of parallel path these so that we've had a chance to review the remediation resilience options, enough time to go to DEEP and EPA and see, and to Brenda's point, to DEEP and FEMA and everyone, would you even approve these kinds of things? And then be able to not have to spend taxpayer money undoing landscaping and then redoing it for something that makes sense. So long-winded way of saying, when do you think we would have an RFP done and a proposal?
Well, I
for
mean,
that?
we're obviously far off from landscaping.
Well, no,
A lot
but
to
the thing that's going to take time is getting in front of DEEP and FEMA.
Well, the answer's pretty straightforward. Where RACE is now, they said it's gonna take them 3 to 4 weeks to get us all the scour information that we need. So my thought is, as soon as that's completed, we go right to them and say, we've already talked to them about updating the resiliency study. So we're not gonna have to RFP or anything like that. So I'm gonna stay with RACE. So I'm assuming that in 3 to 4 weeks, when they're done, we're gonna sit with them and say, okay, now we're gonna go to what I'll call phase 2, which is, let's start the resiliency project. Let's update that project. Let's update it with some new ideas that you have submitted, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay, that sounds great. And because we'd also, in our proposal to you, put forward that we might want to sort of expand a little bit the modeling that they're doing as part of the original 32,000 phase to model maybe different storm scenarios and also a different geography behind.
32,000 is, I want to leave that with RACE.
Oh, I want to stay with RACE too.
I'm not expanding anything. I'm focused on addressing the NOV. If that's what they need to address the NOV, that's what we're going to do.
Okay. I mean, this would be taking exactly what they're doing to address the NOV and possibly expanding it a tiny bit. Then that expansion dollars would come out of the 100,000, obviously, from a.
We can have that conversation once they're done.
Okay. Thanks. That's all I had.
Thank you, Becky.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that, to Mr. Bremer? Sorry. Do you want- Can you explain the rationale of what you just said? Because if you are going to expand on the modeling, I understand you want to address the NOV, and that's an immediate priority.
Right.
But does it make sense to sort of do that and then, I mean, if they're already sort of set up to do, doesn't it make sense then to kind of address what expansion you might do of the specifics?
No, maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, but my understanding of what they're working on right now is to provide enough data so that the architects and the structural engineers can do their modeling in terms of the construction that we require. So that's one project. That's 32,000. That's what they say they need, and they need 3 to 4 weeks to complete that. They've already begun it, so they're doing that. As far as the 100,000 is concerned, to my mind, they have done a study, I think it was 2016, where they looked at 7 or 8 different ideas. Now, and my understanding as well is we've already received a few additional ideas from FECB, which I'm going to incorporate into that. So we're going to sit down with Race and say, okay, Race, you've already done a study in 2016. Now that we have a new elevation, you need to update that study, meaning you need to refigure, can it work, and that sort of thing, based on the new elevations. That's what I'm assuming they're going to do, as well as the new ideas that FECB has put forth. So that's what we're talking about. Now, if there's additional modeling that FECB is requesting that we do and stuff, we can have a conversation with Race at that time saying, okay, we want to add this or we want to add that. I'm not arguing against anything. I just want to make sure that what we end up getting from them is really useful for us so that we can then go to DEEP and FEMA and say, okay, we had 7 ideas and now 2 of them we really like, 5 of them we don't like. Let's take a look at those 2.
My understanding, and I'm not arguing that you're arguing, I'm just saying that I think the point is that while Race is already in there doing this study to address the NOV, if you expand slightly the modeling, because they use the words adjacent to what that could mean, and that's all, because they're already going to be in place. And so ask us to consider.
We can have that conversation with Race. We certainly have that conversation. We're not going to wait a month before we.
Right.
We're talking to them all the time. So.
In conjunction, obviously, with Becky and the commission to make sure. Right.
Sure.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks. Sure, absolutely, of course. All right. Next item. Where am I? Oh, 8. Okay. So Jennifer brought it to my attention. Well, she brought it to my attention probably a month ago, but we were wrapped up with Penfield, so I wasn't paying attention to this. But she reminded me that apparently every 4 years, a compensation committee has to be put together to determine what the next first select person and Board of Selectmen salaries will be for the going forward 4 years. So she gave me the minutes of the last one, which was 2019, and I took a look at it. So the Board of Selectmen has to appoint this compensation committee to come together, and they typically, I guess, meet I don't know, 2 or 3 times according to minutes that I read from 4 years ago. And I saw who people who were on it. So it's usually 2 Board of Finance members, 2 RTM members. I took the liberty of reaching out to 2 Board of Finance members, 1 who served on it last go-around, and 2 RTM members, 1 who served on it last go-around. And they all said they had no problem. I guess they look at CCM. They need like login date information to get on CCM and review things. So that's why this is here now. And it typically has to be done by a certain time period. So these are the items. And so I'm going to ask for a motion to hear and consider and approve a charge of the Compensation Recommendation Committee for the Board of Selectmen.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, I'll open it up for any discussion.
Yeah, how does this then impact what's budgeted and what we vote on in this previous budget? Because
It's for the next year. It's for the next term. I don't really know. I mean, maybe, I don't know what, I guess, I don't know, Tom, do you know? Do they
We
use
budgeted a raise
contingency
for
if
the
they change
first
it?
select.
They use contingency, they pull it out of contingency if it happens.
If it's additional.
Yeah, theoretically, this should have been done, I mean, it should have been done prior to the budget process, but it always happens like this, right?
Yeah, it happened, according to the
last
minutes,
time.
4 years ago, it was done in.
Yeah, this was a relatively I served on the first one of these. Originally, yeah, about 8 years ago, from the Board of Finance, we actually kind of got into it with the administration and recommended something like this because it didn't seem right that the Board of Selectmen was basically proposing their own salaries during the budget
Because you
process.
can't pay us enough.
Right. So that they, that then they took about putting together a committee just like this. This mirrors essentially what was done in the past. And usually if there's a difference, they take it out of contingency is what's been the past practice. So
Is there language to the charge?
it
We're going
was
to
in
go to
our
the next one.
package, yeah.
This is just to establish, we have a motion to hear and consider and approve the charge for the compensation committee.
Right, so we're voting on the charge itself. Frankly, I didn't get past the
Yeah.
Enfield stuff.
I mean,
so
I
let me
think
take
it's
a quick
just,
peek.
I think it's basic boilerplate, just to put together a committee to review and come up with,
It looks pretty consistent with what
I think
was
it's the
done in
same
the
exact
past.
one.
Yeah.
But that's what we're voting on, this language, right?
right, item number 8.
Yep. Okay. I have no questions or problems.
Any discussion? Is there any discussion from the public on this item?
Nope.
Seeing none, back to the board?
Yeah, is there, no later than July 23rd? Okay, no.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, so item number 8, can I get a motion to hear, consider?
9.
Sorry, 9, to hear and consider and act upon the following appointments to the Compensation Recommendation Committee for the Board of Selectmen. Ed Bateson, John Matola, Sharon Pastilli, James Walsh.
I'll make a motion, so moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, and no discussion, but aye.
Okay. Thank you. I think there's a mistake here on the, I just want to note it for the record. The address for Mr. Walsh is not Davis Road, it's Platt Street.
It's on here.
It's on here.
Agenda is on Pratt Street.
Okay, I must have, I don't know. Okay, thank you. I hope everybody else is right. No, actually, Bateson's address is wrong, too. What do you have on there?
North Street.
Oh, okay.
lives there.
I don't know, why mine's wrong. Okay. All right, sorry.
We swapped it out on you just to have some
Okay.
fun.
I didn't get an updated copy. All right, item number 10, can I get a motion to consider and act upon tax refunds as recommended by the tax collector in the amount of $9,675.84?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on this item?
I'm good.
Any discussion from the public? Seeing none, back to the board? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, motion carries. Just a couple items. Tonight, there is a information session about age-friendly initiative that our town is undertaking. We've talked about this before. The ARPA age-friendly Fairfield, we became recently one of 7 towns in the state to join this network that aims to make our community a great place to grow up and grow old by assessing the challenges of our aging population. And so that is taking place tonight, 7 p.m. A lot of people are actually pretty interested in that. And on Thursday, April 20th at 6:30 at Osborne Hill School, the town is hosting a public workshop for our plan of conservation and development. This, right before the pandemic, we had, they were really great, the ones that Jim and Emmeline. And if you remember, we appropriated ARPA funds toward this so that we could get this thing finished. And so they're going to be having that meeting on the 20th at 6:30, which they were really very good meetings. They broke out in focus groups, and I thought they were really helpful when I went. I want to just inform the board that the Fairfield Public Library is having a Holocaust commemoration program on Wednesday, April 19th at 6:30 at the main branch library. And then all of our residents are invited to gather and commemorate the Holocaust on Wednesday, May 3rd, at the First Church at 7:30 with an interfaith ceremony. This is an annual event that's hosted by the Fairfield Holocaust Committee, and it always includes a really meaningful speaker. I attended last year, and it was a it was a very moving ceremony, and I would encourage both my fellow members to join me this year, and any of our residents. It is a very, I think it's a very important and moving ceremony for our community to take part in. And then I'll open it up if there's any new business anybody has.
Two small things.
Sure.
I don't know if this is someone can address, but my back is always to the room. So for anyone that is,
Oh,
I
is it?
just,
Oh,
I don't know if there's a way, Jerry, to reimagine this.
well, there's a camera right there.
Put a screen here.
Okay, I don't know what it is, but I'm always, so just something to think about. It's not that I need to be
Fair
on
enough.
camera, I just feel bad with my
No,
back.
there's, I
always
think
to-
that camera goes on sometimes too. It depends on, I don't know how it works.
We only have one camera for the WebEx in any.
Oh, I gotcha, because it's WebEx.
Yeah.
Oh, that's WebEx, that's not Fair TV.
And I
Yeah.
did forget 2 items, so I'm sorry. Shop and Stroll is Thursday, April 27th in downtown. It's a spring shop and stroll. It's a nice opportunity to get some Mother's Day presents, if anybody needs some Mother's Day presents. I'm sure my son is listening to this Board of Selectmen meeting as part of this event. They're also going to be collecting food pantry items, raising funds for Operation Hope. And then Earth Day is on Saturday, April 29th from 10 to 1, rain or shine at the Fairfield Y. And it's in conjunction with the town's observance of the Drive Electric Earth Day and Healthy Kids Day. So that's always a fun event. And they're going to also doing the bike rodeo, sponsored by the Boy Scouts and the Fairfield Police Department and Yale New Haven Health. So a lot of these items were on in the newsletter, but they're also on the town website.
Yeah, and one thing on a civic pride note, and first of all, it pains me to say this as a proud Syracuse alum, but the University of Connecticut winning the national championship in basketball was huge.
It was huge.
But also Quinnipiac
Yeah, that was
hockey
really cool.
won. And the interesting part about that and the ties to Fairfield is Rand Pecknold, the head coach of Quinnipiac, is a longtime Fairfield resident.
And someone I went to college with. Go Rand.
There you go.
Nice.
Proud.
So there you go.
It is.
And then I just had a question. The Arts Commission, when do you think we're going to start to populate that? Any thoughts to that? And maybe you don't know now, but
No, I
if
don't
you
know.
could get back to
I'm
me,
sorry,
'cause
yeah, I
I
don't,
would love
but-
to be able to, given my professional background, actively participate, and I'll start to
I'll have
forward my
Jen start going through
recommendations.
'em.
But there's a lot. There's been
There
a
are
lot of interest.
so many. I wish more people were involved in other boards.
Yeah.
as much as that.
It just goes to show
I
the
couldn't
importance
believe how
of
many
the arts
people.
in a community, so.
But yeah, so, but if you have all of those, you get obviously a copy.
gonna start to-
So if there's any recommendations you want to forward to Jennifer, and Tom, same for you, obviously welcome those.
They're it's really heartening. There are some amazing candidates with incredible related experience, so I'm excited.
All right. All righty. If there's no further items, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.